What's going on, people? Georgio Savvides here, founder of the Hip Hop Orchestra, as well as the host of the Hip Hop Orchestra Presents podcast. And I got a really exciting announcement to finally make with everyone, is that we have our very first official sponsor for the podcast. Now, they are an amazing, amazing company called Eldon's Vault, who are extremely dedicated in bringing you the very best in officially licensed merchandise from pop culture. And when I mean the very best, I mean the very best. They provide things like keyrings, caps, t-shirts, to Funko Pops, to statues from all over, such as DC, Marvel, Disney, The Mandalorian, Harry Potter, music artists from all over the place, and they are ridiculously good. I've got a couple of things to show you on offer at the moment. This trust with their stuff is amazing. So, t-shirts, like I mentioned, like the one I'm wearing right now. It's got Rocky right here, which I absolutely love. Or, like I said, also got Funko Pops as well, 3.75 inches and 10 inches. I've got a couple of 10 inches right here for you. I've got Post Malone right here, and I've also got Biggie right here, who I absolutely love. These are so sick. Eldon's Vault, trust me, they are amazing. Now, I'm going to leave the link below in the video right here, and also in the description below as well in all future videos from the podcast. But trust me, Eldon's Vault are amazing. Website is www.eldonsvault.co.uk. Get in touch with them now and start buying ASAP. But also, before I forget as well, I just want to say the biggest thank you to Eldon's Vault for sponsoring the podcast. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you. And trust me, get in touch with them right now. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And peace. Welcome to another amazing episode of Hip Hop Orchestra Visits. I'm joined by an amazing, unbelievable guest, entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Ear to the Ground Agency, Stephen Smith. How are you, sir? You okay?
Yeah, really good. Lovely to speak to you this evening.
You too. We were just saying actually before the podcast, weren't we, how it's been years actually since we spoke last properly, wasn't it?
Yeah, lots happened.
Lots. Tell me about it. No.
A lot's happened.
Oh, my God, a lot's happened actually, but you still look as young as ever, so it's okay.
Oh, you're too good. This is going to go well.
Well, I hope so. You know, we definitely will do. But we're saying, we've been about, 5-6 years, hasn't it, since we saw each other last, actually?
Yeah, so much has happened in the last 12 months. 5 years ago feels like a lifetime.
I know. But I was saying as well, actually, that, because I love to ask my guests about how lockdown's been in the year, actually. But you're saying, weren't you, before the podcast, how this has actually been a really busy year for you?
Well, I'm involved in different organisations. So the main business that I'm involved in is Ear to the Ground, and we've been very, very lucky. And I think there's a lot of luck involved in this year and where things have landed for people. But the business has very much over the last few years moved away from delivering events, and now the work that we do is very much around sports and esports, and working for brands that want to use sport and esports in particular to build a fan base, to help them improve their perception. So our main clients have actually been doing pretty well. So PlayStation's a big client for us.
Yeah,
they've benefited from lockdown in a big way, and also New Balance have had a relatively solid year because people are out there running, and so yeah, we've been quite lucky off the back of that. So things are going well.
I'm so glad to hear that, because PlayStation was one thing I wanted to get into, actually, because you work with some honestly incredible people, like you said, like PlayStation, New Balance, also UEFA as well for many years.
Yeah, for many years.
It's been, and also obviously Nike as well. It's like these major companies that people would die to work with. I mean, I obviously would love to get into that in the meantime, actually, but you've been running Instagram for over 17 years now. Is that correct?
17 years.
17
That's
years.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is right. 17 years hard labor.
Wow.
I've stepped away from the day-to-day of the business now. So there's a group of far more gifted and talented people who are much younger that are leading the charge now. It is a very intense thing to be involved in, an agency, a marketing agency. And the guys are doing an amazing job. So I really get involved in the strategic side of the business and look at where we're going and how we're going to grow and what the opportunities and where the challenges are.
Yeah.
But the guys kind of took over the day-to-day running of the business about 3.5 years ago. And it's been a great new part of the adventure.
That's brilliant. I mean, how was it for you to kind of hand over the reins in a way to other people to look after your baby? Because I bet you're like me, where you're kind of the person that likes to like kind of have your hands in everything and make sure that everything's running smoothly and you're a perfectionist. And how was it for you to kind of hand over these reins to other people?
Well, it's been 17 years, and it was all me. When I say it was all me, the creative part was very much me. I had an amazing team of people and a great business partner. But the creative part was very much driven by me, and I was a real perfectionist about that. And that was a real concern. I was really conscious about, stepping back from that. We've got an amazing team in Rich and Owen and Dolan. And, the team's got a lot bigger over the last few years. We're about 40 people now.
Wow.
So I was really conscious that I had to step away and let the guys take over. And I really built myself up for that because I knew it was going to be hard and it was my baby. But I was really aware. And I think they were really conscious that I probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because they knew what I was like. I was so hands-on. So for the first year or so, it was maybe longer, maybe still. I think they were kind of constantly making decisions. They're going, "Where's Steve? Where is he? We just smash through the walls and tell us we should be doing it differently." But I never did. And, I'm really proud of where the agency is going and how it's developed and the clients it's working with and the strategic direction it's moving in.
I'm so proud to hear.
It's doing great work. It's doing great work at the moment. Really fantastic work this year in particular.
That is fantastic because obviously, even before we met, originally through Harriet, we were just saying actually through Secret Sessions, Harriet J. Wrench. Obviously, I've known about your work that you do, and I've been such a big fan of the work that you've previously done and still do to this day, which is fantastic. And just to sit down again and speak to you is a real honor, so thank you.
No problem. Well, it was 5 years ago. It's still 12 years into the business.
I know.
And, the thing is, when a business is running for that length of time, it's not really a fixed thing. It's more of a journey, and it's an adventure, and it's a roller coaster, and there's highs and there's lows, and it's always got to change because we're involved in youth culture, we're involved in music and in trends and fashion, and everything is moving all the time, and it's moving quicker and quicker as technology increases. So there is no time where you can ever go, right, we've done it. You do a great job, you celebrate it, and then move on. The next thing has got to happen really, really quickly.
Of course.
So the business has evolved and changed so many times over those 17 years, so many times.
I can imagine, because that is
that's
one
a
thing.
Testament to its survival, really.
Definitely, because that is one thing as well that I wanted to get into about the evolution stage and how you've been able to cope with such a rapid change in evolution. And even before that, I want to get into kind of how and why you started Ears to the Ground. Was it a kind of natural thing to you to start mixing music and sports together, or was it like did someone kind of spark the imagination to you? How did it all start for you?
We have to go a step further back.
Okay.
And something that you and I both share a love of, and that is hip hop. And back in the 90s, the early 90s, I graduated from Manchester University, and I became, I had every possible career opportunity in front of me with my degree. So what did I choose? I chose to be a hip hop promoter.
Yeah.
So I started putting on nights in Manchester and booking artists, and we did shows with everyone from the Far Side to Gangstar to and then we brought in all the jazz greats. So it was Roy Ayers, Gil Scott-Heron, Eddie Harris, Les McCann. There was the Pharoah Saunders. So it was that time. It was the last jazz hip hop kind of wave, and it was when jazz and hip hop was all fusing, and it was a very exciting time musically. And in fact, there was a huge amount of live music involved in that. We were bringing in live musicians and jazz players with hip hop artists and MCs in clubs all around Manchester. We put records out at that time. And, I think that's really what drew me to your work,
Thank you.
To the orchestra, because I always enjoyed that friction and fusion between MC culture and live music. That was something that I really loved. And I always thought that, there's such a lineage from, hip hop and MCs and freestyling, from freestyle jazz. That improvisation moment is so shared by those, that lineage of music. So hip hop was where it all began for me, strangely enough. The first show I did that was my own show was J. Rue the Damager.
Wow.
In Manchester. And, I pretty much filled every club in the city. I just hired the clubs and booked an artist. And it was a great time. It was a really amazing time. And I carried on just being a promoter, putting on shows. And then I went into the festival space and created a festival in Manchester. But really it was kind of my love of music that got me into this. It was really my love of music. And what happened was that I was putting on all these shows and these events, and brands started coming to me and saying, can we have one of those, please? We love that energy. We love what you've created there. Can you do one of those for us? So then I started working in the and then we set the business really to work for businesses like Orange, mobile phones, and Smirnoff. And we put on shows, music shows primarily for those guys.
That's amazing.
And the next step after that was just, I'm doing the super sharp, quick version, but just to let you know how I got into sport, was the way the Ear to the Ground moved into sport was we started working for, many years later, for Umbro. Umbro came to us and they wanted to use music to promote their partnership with Manchester City. The Sheikh had just taken over. It was a new era for Manchester City.
Oh, wow. Right time as well.
They came to us and said, what's our strategy? We want music to be part of it. So we went and worked with the Gallaghers, Oasis brothers. And we went and worked with Doves and Badly Drawn Boy. And they were all big Manchester City fans. So we brought them round to the table and we created this whole strategy around football and music. And no one had ever really done that before. And off the back of that, we worked with Umbro and Nike on the launch of the England shirt with Kasabian. And I don't know if you know the story, but the concept was that we launched the England shirt away. And the way that we did that was Tom, the lead singer of Kasabian, walked out on stage in Paris in the new England away shirt. And of course, 3,000 Frenchmen booed as loud as they could.
I can imagine.
Which was exactly what we wanted, because we made the film of that and we put it all over the media and we did billboard ads and we did 48 sheet posters and it won a lot of awards. And that was in 2010. And that was really our first sport project. And now 80% of the work is sport, but it's still very much about culture and music. Still about music and working with music artists, but it crosses into lots of different areas.
Yeah, I actually remember that story about him walking out in Paris, actually, with the New England shirt. Yeah. I really remember that story. I can't believe it's been 10 years ago since that happened, though. That initial story.
Can't believe it either.
No, I can't believe it. I mean, when you kind of work with these such major events, like these sort of things, do you feel overwhelmed at any point, or do you feel so involved in the event that you don't have time to really think about it until afterwards?
Well, I'm really lucky because when I was always involved in the creative part. And then I had my business partner and subsequently production teams really make it happen. And I'm just there in the background going, can you move it there? Can you move it to the left? Can you make it a bit bigger, the font? So I wasn't, my work was really done more up front. And it can be quite stressful when things are going wrong, but it was the secret is to work with brilliant people. That you can rely upon and depend upon. And I've been very lucky in that, extremely lucky to be surrounded by people. And, now I've stepped away from Ear to the Ground on the day-to-day. There's an amazing team there of people that are so committed and so, they're like an army unit. It's like a battalion going to war sometimes.
It really is.
You need those people that are just brilliant at their jobs and just don't crack under pressure. And will just get up and keep fixing things, because things will go wrong again and again and again and again and again.
Definitely.
And that's the challenge, really.
It is. I mean, what's your kind of recruitment technique in terms of bringing these people in? Do you kind of test them out in different ways, or do you look at their CVs and then take it from there, or do you take a risk with people? How do you kind of know when to bring people in, but also a mixture of experience as well, thinking, okay, I want to trust my gut instinct on, say, this person or this group of people and bring them in to help out with these kind of areas.
Well, it's hard. It's really hard. And I do go with the maxim of the head of recruitment at Apple that just says,
Oh, wow.
50% of the people I'm going to employ aren't going to be right. And the
Mm.
key is to work it out as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's best for them and best for you to just move that on. And 50% are going to be brilliant. So it's about giving people an opportunity and seeing how they perform. And this isn't just with Ear to the Ground. This is with all the things I've been involved in over the years, because Ear to the Ground's been consistent, but I've been involved in a lot of other businesses and projects. And the thing is not to take it too personally.
Mm-hmm.
If there isn't a fit personality-wise or skills-wise.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Not everybody's right for every job. And there's a lot to do with culture and a lot to do with team. And things won't always work out. And the key is to hold on to the people that are brilliant. That's the real secret to success.
Definitely.
That's the real secret to success.
It really
is to hold on to the people that are talented and gifted and will do the extra bit to make everything brilliant.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because I feel like now, I've said to quite a lot of people actually, that the people I work with now within the orchestra, I feel like my family to me. They're so gifted,
That's right,
so lovely, and so amazing at their job, yet we can just call each other up, have a laugh at each other, go through anything we want, and it's just amazing. And like you said, they put an extra mile to go even further to make it even better than it already is. And that's why I love what I do with the orchestra, because I've got such loving people there to work with, and they're so gifted at what they do. It's unbelievable. It really is.
Well, it's that sense of camaraderie which will get you through the tough times. And also, you're working in a creative space, and that magic that comes when everybody's together and in a creative space, making music, making art, making theatre, making whatever. That's when the gold happens, when there's that connection between people.
It really is. And have you always worked with a kind of big group of people? You said you work with 40 people now. Have you always worked with a kind of similar size group, or have you always got kind of stayed fairly smallish, but then grown when you needed to grow?
That's a core team, and Ear to the Ground shrunk and expanded over the years, depending on clients and scale. We used to be bigger, but we split it in two. So the production side split out about 5 or 6 years ago. So we split it into two businesses, and that cut down the numbers. And then we built back up to the 40 odd again. But I've worked over the years with teams of 250, 300 people on a festival. A village dedicated to hedonism.
Yeah.
And again, I was never involved in that production stuff, but I watched my business partners and my team build stuff out of nothing in a field, deal with 100,000 people, and then, it's remarkable. It's just remarkable.
Wow. I mean, working with that many people.
And then it's gone, and then it's gone again. And I love that ability to create something out of nothing.
Yeah. I mean, your brain,
back it up again.
Yeah, I mean, your brain must be like working overtime all the time, thinking, okay, this has got 100,000 people right now. Straight next thing now. What's the next thing now? What's the next thing? Is that what you kind of go through? That kind of non-stop thinking for the next thing, or do you have you learned to sometimes kind of take a step back?
It's about. I learned many years ago that if you want to be really successful in a project, make it work, you've got to play your role and not drift into other people's roles. And I learned this once when I used to run a festival called Deep Percussion in Manchester. It was about 30,000 people. It was a free festival.
Wow.
People gave donations to it. And it was a brilliant event. And I realized that one year, that I tried to kind of prove to the production team and everyone else that I was involved and I was there and I was supporting everyone. We were in this together.
Yeah.
So I started moving fencing around, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I started helping out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in this. I'm helping everyone.
Yeah.
Anyways, 5 hours later, I'm still moving fencing around. And I just realized that no one was in the VIP area speaking to the sponsors that were going to give us £100,000 to pay for next year.
Wow.
And that was really my job.
Yes.
My job was to be up there speaking to the brands and the sponsors that were paying for everything, that kept it free and made it happen.
Yeah.
And I kind of realized that, and that was the kind of, I just realized that I'd been in the wrong place. And it wasn't because I was lazy or I wanted to have fun that I was in the bar with the sponsors, but that was my job. I needed to be up there talking to them, showing them the site, talking to them about DJs they need to see, bands they need to hear. I need to tell them about the impact it had on the community and the benefits they had economically to Manchester at the time. And I should not be moving fencing around.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't going to generate the money. We need to do it next year. So that was
true.
a realization. That was a realization. And so I've really tried to focus on the areas where I can add most value and try and avoid, and I don't always do this, you could ask the people I've worked with over the years, but try and avoid getting involved in things that are not my area and I'm not an expert in, and leave that to the experts. Always leave that to the expert.
Definitely, I've learned that as well, because sometimes I feel like I need to be involved with literally everything. I love to learn from as many different areas as possible if I can. But if I know that I'm not good at something, I leave it to the experts to deal with that, so I can deal with, like you said, deal with those that I know that I'm good at. And have you kind of had any mentors or people above you when you're coming up in the business to kind of guide you along the way, saying, "Okay, Steve, you're good at, say, this role or that role. Focus to say more on those as opposed to maybe doing this and that."
It's funny, not really. Not really. I do some mentoring work now with various people that are friends who I help out with their businesses, or people that I've just met along the way. And I just do it because I enjoy understanding people's businesses, and I understand it, and people need help and support. I haven't really had that over the years, but I did have a really inspirational character that was a guy called Tony Wilson, who was the guy who set up Factory Records and signed New Order and signed Happy Mondays, and he also built the Hacienda, the nightclub.
Wow, yeah, the Hacienda.
And he was an amazing man, and he always inspired me. He was a brilliant man who just said, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's build it." And he was a brilliant at just making things happen. And he really looked out for me when I was kind of in my early 20s, and just called me into his office a few times over the years, and just made me think about things in a different way. He'd ask me questions, and I didn't realize at the time that he was coaching me.
Yeah,
I didn't realize, but now I look back on it, and he was definitely putting thoughts into my head. And I was acting on those thoughts and taking things in a new direction that unlocked opportunities. And I'm really grateful for that. And he helped me out, and he was an amazing, inspiring man who just achieved the most remarkable things. He had many catchphrases. He was very, very smart and very smart. And one of his catchphrases was, "We're not here to make money. We're here to make history." And he very famously lost lots of money on all his projects. He produced, was responsible for the release of Blue Monday, the biggest selling 12-inch in history.
Yeah, remember, I heard a story about that. Yeah,
by New Order, and because he wanted a certain paint and a certain color sleeve with a certain type of paint on it and a certain die cut.
Yeah,
it meant that every time they sold a record, he lost money.
Wow.
So he didn't realize it was going to be the biggest selling 12-inch in history.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story, and it sums him up amazingly well.
Well, he made history then, didn't he? So there we go.
He made history.
He made history.
That was his mission in life, and he certainly did it. He was my mentor. He was my mentor, yeah.
Brilliant. I'm so glad to hear that. Do you still keep in contact with him as well?
He passed away a few years ago, and it was a lot of people. It was amazing because he had such a huge impact on so many people's lives in Manchester and further afield. He was just one of those people that just made people get up and do things, whether it was part of his project or whether it was someone else's. He really He always supported young people doing stuff.
Yeah,
he always supported. He never looked at what was in it for him in those situations, which was great.
Oh, I'm
Really
sorry to hear
great.
that he passed away, though. I'm so sorry to hear.
It happens to all of us.
It does, it does, it does. Just make history.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we go. But talking about sort of traditional sort of things as well. I know that on your website you've obviously put things like sort of traditional research and creative processes are not the norm anymore. Of passed on now, and to collaborate with a kind of new breed of fan. What do
Yeah.
you feel like are a kind of new breed of fan? And what do you recommend any kind of new business or venture or company to get in touch with these new breed of fan?
Well, the world is changing so fast. It was changing fast before, but this year has accelerated trends, created whole new challenges, whole new opportunities.
Hmm.
2020 has been a year of chaos, disruption, disaster, and brilliance.
Yeah.
All of it rolled up into one, and it is a bit of luck as to which bit you get.
Hmm.
Um, I think that one of the things that Ear to the Ground has really picked up on is that um, the world is much more global, much quicker the spread of ideas between countries and communities and tribes, and that ultimately those ideas are no longer kind of in silos like they used to be.
Hmm.
A younger audience today, is magpie, is picking from here and picking from there and taking bits and pieces.
Hmm.
People don't define themselves by one thing anymore. There's this whole collision of culture happening,
Hmm.
where and we're seeing this in sport, which really it's over the last 5 years, where we see Paul Pogba interacting with Stormzy and
Yeah.
Adidas in the middle
Daddy
of
does.
that, and we're
Yeah.
seeing Rashford doing a campaign about school dinners.
Hmm.
And we're just seeing this whole kind of you look at NBA and its role in music culture.
Yeah.
There's this whole kind of collapse of division
Hmm.
in terms of things are just colliding together. And there's this new breed of fan that is moving very, very quickly through this new landscape.
Mm.
And one of the things that Ear to the Ground has built is a global listening network of 11,000 culturally influential fans dotted all over the world. And we work with them to develop creative ideas for our clients.
That is
So, for
incredible.
example, if Beats by Dre want to know which athlete they should sponsor, they will speak to us, or we will speak to our network of fans around the world to see how different players score, what the sentiment is around those players. And we feed that into our whole loop of making decisions and advising our clients.
Is that fan intelligence that you do
That's
now?
right. We
Mm.
call it fan intelligence, and it's our network. And the way that it works is that we scramble teams together that will work on a specific client challenge or problem or opportunity. So we might have a
Okay.
Beats collective that works in Berlin, a Beats collective in Tokyo, and they will just be fully hooked up with Beats culture, and they will be able to plug into them at any point to find out what's happening in those cities.
Yeah. I mean, how difficult was it to create something like fan intelligence? Because I was obviously looking through the work that you did with that, and it's obviously, like you mentioned just now, as well, 11,000 people that you work with around everywhere. I mean, how difficult was it to create something like that?
It was an evolutionary thing that happened over the last 8 years. We've been working with what we would call rights holders. So rights
Mm.
holders are football clubs, federations, a record label's a rights holder.
Yeah.
Who owns rights?
Mm.
And we were working with people like UEFA and different organizations that needed access to what was going on with different fan groups around Europe. So we've been working on Champions League and Europa League for 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah. So.
And ultimately, if a team from Azerbaijan
Yeah.
gets into the Champions League or the Europa League, we need to do a campaign around it.
Mm.
And that means we need to know what Azerbaijani fans are thinking.
Yeah. Of course.
We need to know what songs they're singing. We need to know what scarves they're wearing. We need to get it right, because you can very easily get it wrong. So through this process of working with these organizations and football clubs and leagues and federations, we just built these networks of fans all over Europe. And we realized that we could get answers to problems and questions really, really quickly that was far more accurate and live than looking on Google. Because Google's out of date, or it's wrong, or it's one person's opinion.
Yeah.
Whereas this was going straight to the super connected fans that were heavily involved in the culture and saying, what do you think to this?
Yeah.
And the answer is going to be right.
Definitely.
So So we've just, over the last 3 years in particular, we've rolled that out. So now it's a function that can work across sport and across culture. It's not just limited to Azerbaijani football fans,
Of
which is a fairly
course.
limited market.
Yeah.
So now we can use it. We use it on every single project that the agency does, and it's been a brilliant job that they've done building it up to 11,000 now.
That's
And
incredible.
there's a real connectivity between us and the network at all times. So they are constantly engaged with and updated and fed with information as to what's going on.
That's incredible. I mean, how do you feel like social media has played a part in your business as well? I mean, I want to go back to kind of these fan intelligence as well, because I know you've worked with people like the UEFA, the Euros, like David Guetta. I know there's other major people as well. I mean, how do you feel social media has helped you in your business? Because is it that instant knowing of what's happening at the right time as well? Has that really helped you?
It's it's so integral to everything we do. There was a point where it's just integral. Everything we do is based on listening. So that can be using other normal tools to find out what people are thinking, and we social media is generally used as the means by which we get our communications out to the audience. Ultimately, that's we occasionally make TV ads. We use the traditional TV model. We just did a TV ad. We've got a TV ad going live next week for a tech company called Stat Sports. But that will be backed up with a huge social media push. We're working with Harry Maguire, Raheem Sterling, and a couple of other Premier League players. They'll all be firing their social media activity towards focusing on the product. So social media it's not even a question of it's the oxygen of our business and our communication. It really is.
It really is. I mean,
it's a long time since I was standing outside nightclubs giving out flyers at 3:00 in the morning.
Tell me about it, because like the people you work with are just beyond incredible. I mean, do you still at this point ever get starstruck or overwhelmed with the amazingness of people that you work with, like Nike or PlayStation, having Maguire, these major Premier League stars, or do you feel like you've kind of got to grips with it now in terms of who you're working with?
I very much stepped away from that side of the business. So the team now are dealing with that level of star, athlete, celebrity on a daily basis now. The people we've been working with over the last month, it's incredible in terms of global tennis stars, Hollywood, footballers. So it's just what we do. And I think it can be quite daunting at times. Particularly with the entourage and the limits on what you can do and how you have to manage everything really carefully. But again, it's the currency of the modern era, just like social media. People look up to their heroes, they look up to their idols, and it's the business. I would be more starstruck, speaking to one of my musical heroes, than I would with a Premier League footballer. But that's just me. I think it's pretty tricky if you're 22 and you're working at Ear to the Ground and you're on an ad shoot with that level of talent and you're a Liverpool fan, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's something to tell your grandma when you go home.
Of course, it goes. Yeah. I mean, have you had any personal favourite sort of moments or events that you had the chance to work on in the years at Ear to the Ground?
Oh, there's been so many.
Yeah.
There's just been so many. So many. There's been so many. It's hard to pick them out. I could go for the really, really big ones, but sometimes with the really big ones, you have less of a role.
Yeah.
So we've been involved in the Euros for the last 2 Euros heavily. We were involved. Oh, the highlight for me, without a doubt, I've just suddenly remembered. The highlight for me was, without a shadow of a doubt, we set up an office in Brazil to work on the Olympics and the World Cup. And I
Wow.
was in Brazil for 4 weeks in Rio, which is my favorite city in the world. And the World Cup was on. And we were working with Nike, we were working with English FA, we were working with some Brazilian brands. And it was heaven.
Can
We got to see football
imagine.
games. We got to do all this. That was the highlight of my entire career. That was the highlight. And that was something I wanted to do for probably 5 years before.
Mm.
And I remember being sat in a coffee shop in Carnaby Street.
Yeah.
And it was about 2000. And it was announced that the World Cup and the Olympics were happening. That one of them had already been announced, but they announced the second one. And I was sat in a coffee shop in Kingley Court.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, we're going to Brazil. We're going to set up a business in Brazil, which was a ridiculous thing to say, a nonsensical thing to come up with. But then 5 years later, we were there.
There we go.
We were right in the thick of it. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I just feel sorry for Brazil now because it's in such a bad place. But
it is, I know.
Brazil is my favorite place in the world.
Yeah, but you're saying about those crazy ideas are sometimes they're the ones that you need to go towards, isn't it? And they're the ones sometimes that excite you and make you want to go towards it. And there you go, a few years later, you're there. I mean,
that's right.
That is just a dream for literally anyone, isn't it? To go to say, that's for me like the home of football is Brazil, and to have the World Cup there and the Olympics, and you've got the chance to work there. I mean, I bet you still like
special.
Yeah, well, I can imagine being really special. I mean, you must still be pinching yourself now, thinking I was in Brazil a few years ago.
I have many moments. There's many moments where I'm still amazed that we managed to sell the idea and that it happened to clients and that they went with it and that it happened. And that is really our business. And my career really is coming up with ridiculous ideas, nonsensical ideas, and then getting everybody to believe in them, and then making them happen. And the hardest point is when you sell the idea to a client or to a city or to an organization that you're trying to get to back it. And one of the most frightening moments, and I probably shouldn't say this because but one of the most frightening moments over the career is when they say yes, and you go, oh my God, I've got to do this now. But then, you bring brilliant people together. You have a rough idea of how you can get there. You bring brilliant people together, and then a month, a year, 3 years later, you're there, or you see it on TV, and it's a wonderful feeling.
No, I can imagine. I can imagine. Didn't Richard Branson say the same thing where he goes, get the client or whoever it might be to say yes, and then learn as you're going along. Basically, like blag your way into it, then learn as you learn on the job.
This the only way, because we're all learning, and unless we're stuck doing the same repetitive factory job, then everything is new, and everything is difficult the first time you do it.
Of course.
And you have to embrace that. You have to embrace the fact that it's going to go wrong and it's going to change and evolve, and projects are a journey. Again, I said it before about the business, but a project is also a journey.
Of course it is.
And you've got to be up for that. If you really want to, you've got to be up for the journey.
Of course.
And, I often look back at the things that Ear to the Ground's done and other things that have happened in my career with other businesses that I've been involved in and organizations, and it's wonderfully, there's definitely a pinching moment there. A lot of stuff's happened that I'm so grateful for.
I can imagine. And have there been any kind of particular projects that you found particularly difficult to work on? Obviously, there've all been like major projects you've worked on, but have there any major particular one be thinking, okay, that one was a bit of a nightmare to work on, or it was so hard to work on, but it came off really well?
There's a real difference with clients that believe in you and clients that panic. And we've got such a good team now, and there's so much focus on the client and understanding their needs. That's a key part of our business now, is understanding what the client really needs, Whereas I think in the past, it was more about, this is just a brilliant idea and we've got to do it. The audience are going to love it. Your audience, it's going to be brilliant. But I think that in the past, we probably spent, and I'm talking about 10 years ago, we probably spent less time taking the client on the journey with us.
Yeah.
And that is very difficult when you lose the faith of the client halfway through. That's tough because it's really hard and you've all got to be in it together. If you're doing something that's pioneering, it's never happened before, you all need to do it together. And the thing which is most frustrating is that the end result is still always brilliant. Well, not always, but the couple of projects I'm thinking about, the end project was brilliant, fantastic, and was better. And the client was shocked because they'd lost faith. But I suppose that was our fault, and we had to change that. And we had to listen more to what the client wanted and take that client on a journey and spend more time explaining to them and give them more information they can take to their bosses and their board. But there's been a couple of examples, not for a long time now, where we've lost the faith of the client. And that's really difficult, really difficult. So they were difficult projects.
Yeah. And how do you then kind of get them to, how do you kind of bring them back then to say, look, it's going to work out for sure, trust me? How do you kind of deal with that? Or have there been different things or each client that you had to work on? Or
it's hard. It's hard. Once they've lost faith, if you've got a client that's not necessarily as risk-taking as the team that agreed to employ you and as risk-taking as you are, and they are more cautious and risk-averse, they can just panic halfway through. Yeah. That's happened in the past. And that makes it very difficult. And even when the project, the film, the event goes really well, everybody's still left with an uncomfortable feeling about it. Yeah. And I think that we had to change our business to care, more about the client on the journey rather than just the results. The fact that we knew it was going to be good wasn't enough. We had to take a lot more time bringing people on that journey, which wasn't a point of just selling it to them and then giving them the finished project. We had to support them much more through that process. Yeah. And I was going to ask about how you've had to, next question actually is to do with clients actually. Do more people approach you to work with them, or do you feel like you have to push the business out there to work with more people? Like, depending like UEFA and PlayStation and these major companies, do they approach you first, or do you have to approach them in order to get the work needed? It's very much word of mouth in the business. So relationships are generated by one person moving from one company to another company, or there's someone says, "Oh, you need to work with these guys. They're really good. They're exactly what you need." We work a lot on marketing our business, and it's very, very competitive. There's a lot of agencies out there, and it's extremely competitive. So we're constantly, just letting people know what we're doing, how we're doing it, and the things that we can help them with, and how we can help them. So it's just a constant, hum of activity on social media and at events, and Amazing. And kind of go back to what we said earlier about how we both know how quickly things do change, especially in the industry that we're in, the creative industries. How have you been able to stay on top of these sort of new trends and so forth? Is it through like bad intelligence and your previous work that you've already done, or are you always constantly researching the new thing that's going on? If I take a step back from ear to the ground, I think there's a few organizations I work with, and some of them, if you look at the wider economy, some businesses, there's just nothing you can do really. For example, I am involved in a festival called Parklife in Manchester. That's not happening. It's not happening. So there's not really a lot you can do. And the guys are doing some amazing things on other projects, but there's not a lot they can do on Parklife. Not much can happen on Parklife this year. It's cancelled, that's it. And who knows what will happen next year. It's out of our hands. And I think that's true of the travel industry and the hospitality industry, bars and clubs, and it's terrible. It's decimating whole industries. However, what I am seeing in other areas that are slightly less damaged is what I call the difference between success and failure is what I call and have read about as an anti-fragile approach.
Mm-hmm.
So some organizations have responded really, really brilliantly to COVID. And the anti-fragile approach is the idea that something that hits you can make you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, you're not just resilient, whereby you will not be damaged by the hit. It will make you stronger. So this anti-fragile approach I've seen work fantastically well with Ear to the Ground, who went back to their clients, and we went back to our clients with new ideas, new concepts, and helped the clients through this difficult period. But I also I've been working with an organization called In Place of War, which is a charity organization. And what they did was they used music, art, and theatre in conflict zones around the world. And they completely flipped their offer. And their strapline was, the thing was, In Place of War, creativity conquers conflict. And they completely turned that upside down over the last 9 months and said creativity conquers COVID. And they've been working with all these big streaming platforms like Beatport, Insomniac in the States, various organizations, United We Stream, and have been the official charity partner on all those streams. And they've managed those streams and been the charity, official charity organization. So they've raised a lot of money and helped people all over the world in a completely different way because of COVID. Now that help was really needed by the organizations, the arts organizations around the world that they support. But what I loved about that was how they just flipped so quickly and instantly. There's a terrible problem. What do? You can sit back and go, we wait till it passes. The world's too difficult. How are we going to generate any money in this moment? No one's interested in creativity in conflict zones. Well, they flipped completely and built all these connections with all these streaming platforms and generated a lot of income. And I just think that's an incredible example. And I've seen quite a few over the last 9 months of organizations that have just found a way to unlock new opportunities. I don't think it's possible in every business and in every sector, because if you're a music festival or a holiday operator, there's not a lot you can do.
Of course not.
I think there's been some incredible creativity during this period and some incredible reactive thinking that I've been amazed by and really impressed by.
It's really true. I've been the same way. I've seen so much creativity happening now. It's been amazing. And like you said, you can either sit back and wait for the whole thing to end, or you can do something about it. And it's so true what you said, that not everyone is in the same position. They can't all move together forward, but if you can, then fantastic, really fantastic. And I'm so glad that as well, that you said earlier, like how busy you've been as well this past year as well. I was going to ask how...
I think everybody in March, everyone I know, is probably in a group of about 20 people that all friends that run their own businesses. And every single person looked down the barrel of a shotgun in March because there was so little certainty. No one knew anything. And there was a week or 10 days where everyone just went, no idea. No idea what's going to happen. And then bit by bit, they started piecing together plans. And generally, some of them have been hit really hard, but generally the majority of the people that I know and work with have been less damaged than they anticipated. We're not out the woods yet by any stretch of the imagination, but I think where people were in March, the majority of the people I know and work with, and again, this isn't the events industry I'm talking about, or this is across a whole load of different sectors. The majority of people it's not been as bad as they thought it was going to be in March. I think that's not true again for events or hospitality, but I think in other sectors, it's not been as bad.
And we mentioned earlier about you being an entrepreneur as well, and you kind of step back as well a bit in terms of working at Ear to the Ground. What are the kind of things that you're working on at the moment as well?
Well, I worked on a tech project last year for a German tech business, just helping out with branding and their positioning in the marketplace. That was really interesting because I didn't know anything about tech startups. So that just taught me a lot. That's now moved on to the next level, but I've done my bit on that. And as I said, I've been working a lot over the last 2 or 3 years with In Place of War. helping them with their brand and their positioning and their strategy. They're an amazing organization. They work in 26 countries around the world. And they empower change makers everywhere from South Africa to the favelas of Colombia. They are an amazing organization, and I've been working with them a lot over the last 3 years. That's been a great experience. Ear to the ground, strategic role there, and like I said before, I do a bit of mentoring and helping out with friends that run businesses because I really enjoy it, and hopefully I can add some value to them.
Oh, you definitely can with your background and your knowledge as well, and experience is amazing. I might have to jump on board with that as well, actually, for myself. But,
well, I think the key is I've made a lot of mistakes. I will hold my hand up. I have made a lot of mistakes, some of which I cringe about, some of which I wish I could wind the clock back, some of which, I wish I'd done things differently. But hopefully, some of those mistakes can be avoided with the people that I speak to. So
100%.
Hopefully.
Definitely, because we all make mistakes, don't we? It's when you learn from those mistakes, you can move on, isn't it?
Well, as we said before, and as you pointed out, that learning curve.
Yeah.
The only way you can go forward is by going into the unknown, and mistakes will happen.
Definitely. And
it's inevitable.
It's so inevitable. And do you feel like you learn better by being thrown in the deep end of things, or do you have to prepare step by step in order to get ready?
Well, as I've got older, I've become more strategic. But I still like the deep end.
Yeah,
that's where you learn quickest. But I really get a kick out of providing structure, and I'm not an organized or coordinated person, but I like clarity on vision. I like clarity on an organization knowing where it's going and what it does, who it does it for, why it's different, why it's special, and how it can change the world in its own way, or certainly change people's lives. So yeah, that's important to me. But I quite like doing that in the deep end. I'm not the type of person that would spend 2 years researching a businut.
Yeah.
I would get stuck into it. I think best just to do it.
There we go. And to finish off with, actually, what have been some of the best lessons you've learned over the years of doing such amazing work?
Well, the best single lesson I've learned is that the easiest, simplest, most rewarding and most effective way to success is to empower and support other people around you rather than try and do it all yourself.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to learn that lesson. And it would have been good if I'd learned it earlier. But that's definitely the number one lesson. And as an entrepreneur and as business owners, we are perfectionists, and we do fall into the trap of wanting to do it better because we know we can do it better because we've been doing it longer, and we understand more than probably the people that we're employing or the people that we're bringing on board in many cases. And I think that it's really, really, it's a huge leap forward to be able to let go and let other people do it in a way that may not be as good as you can do it in some ways. Yeah. And as I said before, the other thing is just to get brilliant people that are much better than you to do the other stuff.
Here we go.
That's easy to give up. But it's harder to give up things to people that are maybe younger or not as well trained or have got the experience that you've got. But giving them the time and trying to support them, that is the biggest opportunity for growth and success.
There we go. I couldn't agree more. And it's such an amazing way to end the episode as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for being an amazing guest of the podcast. Thank you. I've learned so much from you again. So thank you.
Well, you never knew my background was live hip hop, did you?
No idea. There we go. No idea. Well, I learn from you every day. There you go. Right, there we go.
There you go. Well, good. Well, let's catch up again soon.
100%. How can people find you actually as well before we go? Before I forget, how can people find you?
It's mainly on LinkedIn. So that would be the main form of communication for me from a business perspective. So, Steve Smith, Ear to the Ground. It's probably the easiest way to track me down.
Amazing.
Please do.
There we go. I'll definitely catch up soon for sure. 100%.
Brilliant. Really enjoyed that. Thank you
Me
very much
too.
for your time and good questions.
My pleasure. Thank you as well. And that's the end of the episode. Here we go. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.